OTAs rolls on for your Baltimore Ravens. Coming up on today's show, we're going to break down the key position battles for your Baltimore Ravens. Players that stand out and who are competing for playing time. We'll break down each situation in just a matter of moments. I am merely Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us here on the channel today. Before we get started, I want to set the comments record here on today's show. Can we get over 300 comments shouting out your favorite Baltimore Ravens player? No wrong answers here. Whether it's Lamar, Mark Andrews, Kyle Hamilton, I don't care who it is. Shout out your favorite Ravens player. Spam them in the chat, and we'll get started with today's show. Let's begin with the wide receiver 3 position. And Nelson Agholor, by far the favorite for this spot, but this is not a foregone conclusion that he'll be wide receiver 3 as you look at the way this room stacks up. Tylan Wallace is back. Also got Tez Walker, the 4th-round draft pick out of the University of North Carolina, competing for playing time. And the real question becomes, I think, for Nelson Agholor is, will there be fall-off? Will there be drop-off for Nelson Agholor? He came through for this Ravens team in some big moments last year where he looked pretty dang good for what the value they got out of him of being a cheap signing last offseason. They obviously bring him back. They're pretty happy with what he did, but you do wonder, another year older, is this the year that Nelson Agholor takes a step back and one of these other guys steps up? One of the guys that potentially could do it is Tez Walker, who comes to the Ravens out of the University of North Carolina. And Tez Walker showed a lot of flashes of brilliance, a deep threat at UNC in the 8 games he played, had an average of over 17 yards of reception, nearly 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was very good, and I think you're looking at some untapped potential. Speaking of untapped potential, I have not given up hope on Tylan Wallace just yet, folks. I saw what Tylan Wallace did firsthand at Oklahoma State. He was one of, if not the best wide receivers in all of college football, dealt with some injuries there with the Pokes, and hasn't really got the chance to break through in Baltimore. This might be a guy that just needs to see the field more to get that chance to show what he's really worth. I mean, you're looking at a total of 7 catches for 67 yards in his entire career at this point. We saw what he did in special teams coverage with that walk-off touchdown that he had in that punt return against the LA Rams last year. We know he's a good athlete. We just need to see him get a chance to actually prove himself. Big edge to Agholor here, but if Walker or Wallace can step up, if they can shine when it comes to these OTAs and we get through mandatory minicamp and all these things there, I think there's a shot for both of them to get significantly more playing time, potentially take away that number 3 receiver role, also depending on how Nelson Agholor looks going into this year. Let's ask you, who's the better wide receiver? Is it Nelson Agholor or is it Tez Walker? Which guy do you like more right now? Type NA for Nelson Agholor, type Tez for Tez Walker. Let us know in the comments section below. The running back 2 role is very fascinating for your Baltimore Ravens. Justice Hill is back. You bring in Rasheen Ali from Marshall, who the Ravens drafted. And then there's Keaton Mitchell as well. Now, Keaton Mitchell was fantastic last year. Led the league in yards per carry. He was so explosive, but he is injured right now. And we don't know exactly when he's going to come back. Last we heard from John Harbaugh was that he was progressing well, that he was on the right track, but there's some prognosticators that think he might not be able to return till October. So with that in mind, you look at Justice Hill, and Justice Hill, we heard John Harbaugh say recently that he came through, that he was a significant savior of sorts for this Ravens team with how shorthanded they were at the running back position. They like what they've seen from him. Ali, last season, was fantastic at Marshall, over 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5.4 yards per carry. A lot of excitement about what he could potentially bring to the table. And then Keaton Mitchell, who we mentioned led the league in yards per carry at 8.4, was so explosive, but still waiting to see when he'll make his return and how he'll look after he makes his return. I like Mitchell a lot, but with the injury, this is a huge opportunity for both Hill and Ali to prove their worth and potentially take carries away and maybe move up to that RB2 spot. So let's ask you, who's the better running back? taking Mitchell out of the equation here, you go with Justice Hill or you go with Rasheen Ali. Type Hill for Justice Hill. Type Ali for Rasheen Ali. Let us know in the comments section below. One player that we're excited about that we'll be talking about here in a few moments, actually, is Nate Wiggins of your Baltimore Ravens. And I got to tell you, I think that he's going to be a fantastic football player. Now's the perfect time to get a jersey of his. That way you can have it for his entire tenure with the Baltimore Ravens. Got the home jerseys, got the road jerseys, got the alternate black uniforms, got the men's and women's options, all different sorts of shapes and sizes. Go see for yourself, chatsports.com/Wiggins. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Might stumble upon some free shipping as well. Go see for yourself, chatsports.com/Wiggins. All right, let's talk about the right tackle position. The Ravens drafted Roger Rosengarten out of Washington with their second-round selection. He's the odds-on favorite to win the job. But you have a veteran in Daniel Falalele, who is also competing for that role, who's been around in Baltimore for a little while now, and the coaching staff has always liked Falalele of what he could potentially bring to the table here. At the very least, if he's not your starting right tackle, then he'll be a good backup to potentially keep around. But you look at Rosengarten. I loved what he did at Washington. That was a great offensive line that he played with there with the Washington Huskies. He was protecting the blind side of Michael Penix at that right tackle position, and the idea that the Ravens have talked about is potentially maybe after Ronnie Stanley moves on, you start Rosengarten at right tackle for now and move him to left tackle down the road. But there's some work to be done when it comes to Rosengarten, when it comes to run blocking. And we know this Ravens offense requires good run blockers. So how quickly will he develop? That remains to be seen. You look at Falalele, and last year, although it was a small sample size, the numbers weren't great, if we're going to be honest with you. A 49 overall grade, allowed 3 sacks, 2 hits, but he is the veteran of the bunch, so we'll see. Advantage here goes to Rosengarten, but he has to show that he's ready right away to earn this job. It's not going to be handed to him on a silver platter. They're going to need to see how well he comes along, specifically when it comes to that run blocking technique. Who will be the starting right tackle for the Ravens? Is it Roger Rosengarten? Is it Daniel Falalele? What do you guys think? Type RR for Rosengarten. Type DF for Falalele. Let us know in the comment section below. We're covering your Baltimore Ravens each and every day here on Ravens Rundown with daily news and rumors. We're talking everything you need to know when it comes to OTAs. And anytime there's breaking news, we're going to break it down for you here on the channel, bring you a video as quick as we can. Subscribe now for free. Never miss a moment. Lock us in. YouTube.com/RavensTV. We got you covered here on the channel every day. Subscribe now. Last one, the cornerback position. And you look at this, the Ravens have a lot of options to work with here. You have the veteran, the Pro Bowler Marlon Humphrey. You also have Brandon Stephens, who's coming off a very strong 2023 campaign. And then there's the rookie Nate Wiggins, who Eric DeCosta said he didn't expect for him to be available when the Ravens picked him there at 30. He slipped through the cracks down to that 30th spot with all the offensive players that were selected early in this year's draft. So with that said, Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stephens, it's interesting. Stephens had the better season than Humphrey, but we've seen Humphrey play at that all-pro level, right? And Humphrey's dealt with the injuries. So it makes you think, does Brandon Stephens hang on there? Or is Marlon Humphrey end up being the odd man out? Does Humphrey potentially move to the nickel spot as far as that goes? Wiggins, his projection, the way that he's modeled himself and the way that they have set him up for the NFL is your prototypical outside corner here. And I think that that is what the future is for Nate Wiggins. So you'd have to think that he's got a good chance to play right away at that outside corner spot. It might turn into where Wiggins is an outside corner, and the competition for the other outside corner spot is actually between Stephens and Humphrey there. This is a good problem to have for the Baltimore Ravens, though. They have depth at this spot. They have multiple guys that are more than capable of covering the outside. Not to mention, you brought in T.J. Tampa as well from Iowa State in the 4th round, who some people had a first-round grade on. So we'll see. what the Ravens ultimately end up doing, but they're in pretty good shape. I can tell you that much. Now, let's ask you. Pick a starting outside corner. You're rolling with Brandon Stevens or you're rolling with Nate Wiggins. Type NW for Nate Wiggins. Type BS. It's not BS, though, with Brandon Stevens, though. Type BS in the comment section. Let us know. We'll see you next time here at the channel.